instruction, golf news, equipment, travel, interviews, course profiles, and more. Your weekly fix of all things golf is about to begin. It's the Flagstick Podcast with your hosts, Jeff Potter and Scott McLeod. All right, welcome to another episode of Flagstick Podcast, brought to you this week by Srixon Golf Balls. Personally, I've been using the Srixon Golf Ball for quite a while now, and it's been perfect for my game. Whether you're looking for a premium urethane option in the Z-Star series, a quality budget option in the soft feel, or somewhere in between with the Q-Star Tour, Srixon Golf is bound to present an option that will work for your game. Give them a try. For more information, visit Srixon.ca. Scott.
Yeah, how are you?
Here we are once again. We got some cool stuff to talk about this week, but the last week, now, first of all, congratulations to you and your lovely wife, Michelle. 25 years of marriage. Yeah. Exciting, very exciting.
Yeah, I had a nice day yesterday. A little quiet. Celebrated a little bit. Went out for dinner. Yeah, it was fun. Hard to believe, as you said. You know, you guys obviously hit that milestone last year.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
That was a pretty cool cake too.
Yeah, I didn't make it.
That was about as extravagant a cake as I've ever seen, and that was.
Yeah, and I went, and the funny part is, here's a funny story. On Saturday night, I actually went to another 25th anniversary party, and the couple's name was Scott and Michelle.
Nice. Are you kidding me?
No, and it was funny because I took a picture of their sign saying "Happy 25th, Scott and Michelle," and I threatened to steal it. So. But I did send a picture of it to my wife and say, "Hey, look, I made us a sign."
Nice. You did not take credit.
I didn't really get credit. She knew better. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting stuff, and we got some pretty exciting stuff on this episode of the podcast. Obviously, the usual great discussions on the front nine, some golf events. Obviously, this is tournament season, so there's lots of that stuff going on, and it's a never-ending cycle throughout the golf season when it comes to the tournaments, and we've got a few of those to discuss. So most of that stuff you're going to find on flagstick.com, but we do dive into a little bit of it here. We also have a great instruction on the lesson tee with Kevin and Jake Haime talking about understanding the bounce on your wedges, which I'm sure is something that a lot of people can relate to and might find something interesting there. And we have a little discussion in the back nine this episode that with all the rankings and on golf courses and whatnot that is coming out, it's kind of golf course ranking season as well. And there's always controversy surrounding it. Now, we're not going to get into too much of the, knocking down one list over another, but we're going to kind of educate, which is what this podcast is really about. Is it's opinions, it's discussions, it's education of what better discussion topic to have than talking about golf course rankings, which is something we don't do. So all that's coming up on this episode of Flagstick Podcast. So you know what? Let's get right into the front nine, brought to you by Metcalfe Golf Club, a natural setting, a pleasant challenge. Looking for fun golf at a great rate, save 15% when you prepay. Visit metcalfegolf.com to book or to prepay golf. All right, Scott, let's dive into the front nine. What do we got? We got obviously the YouTube contest that we launched last episode is we're starting to see a little bit of action, there, which is what we wanted. We encouraged people who said, look, there's stuff that we're going to do on YouTube. We're going to start to grow that channel a little bit more and a little bit more. And it's not just about this podcast. It's about more instruction, more information, more content. And we want to bring that to you. But the only way you're going to get that content is if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. So we created a contest. Our partners at Mint Green Group and Cleveland Srixon came up and gave us some really good stuff to give away. And we got more of it, but we started out with this contest. We're giving away a Cleveland RTX Zipcore wedge. We're giving away a Cleveland Frontline putter, which is an awesome putter, by the way. It happens to be the putter that replaced my longtime putter, and I do love it. So great putter. And we're giving away a dozen.
With it, what, 5-6 hours a day? You're putting?
Yeah, well, I putt in the house from time to time. I have a putting mat. And we're giving away a dozen Strixon Z-Star golf balls. So there's 3 prizes up for grabs, and all you have to do is go to the YouTube channel, the Flagstick YouTube channel. You need to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you need to leave a comment on any one of the videos there that I want to win free stuff. It's pretty simple. You do that, you go into the draw. A couple more weeks, we make the draw for those 3 prizes, but you want to increase your chances. You can't increase your chances of winning that stuff if you don't subscribe and make the comment. So get in, do it. And that's all on that. Scott, Golf Ontario Women's Amateur, Mid-Amateur.
Yeah.
At Loyalist down in your neck of the woods. What an amazing golf course, and some really quality golf.
Yeah, by the time this podcast comes out, it will be concluded. But I'll say I've been out there. I went out on Sunday to kind of watch some golf, follow a couple of players that I maybe have some affiliation with, and keep an eye on them for another coach as well. But had a chance to talk to a lot of players there in both the women's amateur and mid-amateur category. Mid-amateur is really interesting, and Augusta James, who we know quite well here and have covered over the years, she's actually got her amateur status back. People are not familiar. Gus won she won an Ontario amateur before. She won a Canadian amateur, made her way all the way up to the Epson Tour, derailed by injuries, wrist injuries. Is now the general manager at the Briar Fox Golf Club down towards Belleville area, Marysville area. Got her amateur status back and is back competing. So that was great to see. And by coincidence, Marianne Hayward, who the mid-amateur trophy is actually named after, I believe she's won it, 14 times. She's had a wrist injury as well. And we were talking about that on Sunday, and she had the same hamate bone injury that Bryson DeChambeau had and had to have surgery. But a talented field. I would say it's probably one of the deepest fields that I've ever seen in this tournament. 90 players out there. I saw so many college bags. But yeah, nice to catch up with a lot of players out there. One's from the Eastern Ontario region, from around Ontario. A lot of people we just interact with all the time on social media as well. And just putting a kind of a face to the names. And, once you introduce yourself and say where you're at, they're like, oh yeah, they follow you on maybe Twitter or Instagram or whatever. Good to have a chat there. So we'll have a full report on that, next week. And hopefully we'll catch up with some of the players, maybe for some content and things as well. But, big kudos as well to Loyalist. I joked that this is probably the billionth or nearest to a billion events that they've hosted for Golf Ontario.
Yes, but they do host a few.
Easily it's in the high teens as far as the number of provincial championships that this club has hosted. Great volunteers there, really well organized, makes it a lot easier for an association like Golf Ontario to come in and run that. Just because there are so many players, there's so many things that go into running tournaments, as we know. And it's nice when you have the support of a community and a club like that. So good to see. They hosted the Ontario Senior Men's last year, and hopefully we'll see them hosting some more coming up. On that same vein as well, same thing. Golf Ontario, the Junior Boys Championship is going on. At this point here, obviously, there's not much point in giving a news update because it's happening. Currently will be just over as this podcast comes out. But again, there are some Eastern Ontario players that are kind of in the mix there, including one, and we'll see how this turns out when this podcast comes out. Cameron Perro from Picton was leading as we record this on Wednesday. His dad, Mike, actually won the title in 1984. So that would be a really cool book.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
And we'll see how that plays out there. But, keep an eye on our Twitter handle, and obviously, flagstick.com for the full end result of those 2 championships.
Of course, obviously, all this stuff you can find on flagstick.com if you don't happen to catch it on this podcast. Now, there's 3 legs to Golf Quebec's sort of, we call it the Triple Crown. And the Alexander Tunis has already been played. That's one that is played in the Ottawa area that's hosted by the Ottawa Valley Golf Association. But the second leg of that series, or that Triple Crown, is the Duke of Kent. And exciting story there for the individual that won. It was Alexander Mercier, who won the Duke of Kent 70-72 to win the 88th edition at the Royal Quebec. Awesome golf course, but it was Alexandra's first career victory as an amateur golfer, which is really cool because a lot of times with these big events, it's not the person's first rodeo when it comes to winning. A lot of times they've already previously won, club championships or local invitationals and things like that, and they go on and they win bigger events like the Duke, Tunis, the Kent, the amateur. But this was Alexandra's first career victory. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was good to see. And, you get a big one like that. And obviously it brings a lot of attention to that player as well. And this is a young man, so obviously just getting really going in his career and to win that title over a quality field. And it was good to see. And Maxime Maringer, I've tried to pronounce that properly, but if I've butchered it, Maxime, don't shoot me. Of Gatineau tied for third. So he was the best finisher out of the Ottawa Valley Golf Association. I think Ryan Sevigny was tied for 13th. But not as many players from the OVGA kind of made their way down there this year. No. But certainly, this is an historic tournament and great to see it continuing and that tradition continuing. And I thought it was pretty funny, actually, had some postings on Twitter about Duke of Kent and the Alexander of Tunis, and actually had some reaction from some people in the States who are like, what cool names for golf tournaments. Like they're just so unique and individual. And they're like, man, how boss is Alexander of Tunis championship? I heard that from a media colleague down in the US and had to give him the backgrounder on it and to find out what it was all about. Yeah. But just thought it was really unique. We're used to it, right? We're used to seeing it.
It just kind of, it is cool though, but it is kind of commonplace.
Yeah, it kind of goes over your head. So the third leg of the Triple Crown will be coming up shortly in the Quebec men's amateur. But 2 down, 1 to go.
Nice. Now, we've been fortunate to be the media partner of the Play Junior Golf Tour for the last 2 years, and they are in the throes of it right now.
Definitely,
they are poor Chris Veldkamp and his crew there trying to. Which consists of mostly him, but
it does.
His crew of few, but he does an amazing job there, and he's got event after event after event going on, and the Landings just hosted the most recent event on the tour. And why don't we just get a little update on the winners from that one? Obviously, we can't go into too much detail because there's so many participants and categories, but quite a few winners.
Yeah, that was the fifth event of the season. We'll have the details next week on the sixth event, which actually would have taken place yesterday. Now that this is coming out on Friday at the Canadian.
Yes, we are not live.
We are not live.
Sorry to say, we're not live.
Yeah, and the thing is, they have so many events that obviously, it can surpass kind of where we're at as far as the posting. The winners out there at the Landings were Landon Touchette, who recently had a hole-in-one. I think we made mention of that last week as well. And Metcalf, only 10 years old. Cash McDonald, which is actually really cool. Cash is a cool little kid. I remember him coaching him. He was on my daughter's.
Oh my gosh.
He was on my wife's grade school golf team, and went out, and when we were in PEI a few years ago, I raced back from PEI to go and help out at the tournament and help her team out, and Cash was on that team, which is kind of cool. That's to see him progressing and playing and getting some tournament wins. The other winners were Stella Northcott, Lucas Olmsted, Paige Douglas, Spencer Cranley, Wilson Dornicamp, and Marnie Murray.
There you go. Wrapped up in a tight little bow. We'll have lots more results from Play Junior Golf Tour events throughout the summer, because there is quite a few events and they're kind of happening multiple times throughout the week.
Yes,
so
sometimes twice a week. Yeah.
Take a deep breath, Chris. I'd say it's almost over, but it's just begun.
Yeah.
The OVGA had their city and district for the U13 and U15 age group, and held at Rockland and Rivermead golf clubs recently. Owen Kopp and Florence Ho of Ottawa Hunt won the Mosquito division this year. And in the Pee Wee division, Carlson Hurlbert from Camelot and Ottawa Hunt, Charlotte Hutchison were the winners. Chase Jerome of Royal Ottawa and Avery Nordman of the Canadian were the winners in the Bantam division. So
you got her.
So that wraps up the OVGA's U13, U15 City and District Championships, and they still got quite a few events left to go this year before they call it a tournament season. So there will be no shortage of results as the season progresses here on this podcast or on flagstick.com. Now, the OVGA had the very long-standing Marjorie Strong event, which is a two-person team event.
Yep.
And in that event, there's 3 divisions. Division 1 was won by Barb Byrne and Janet Creighton. Division 2 was won by Donna Rennie and Nancy Taylor, and Division 3 was won by Pat Edgar and Diane Beauchamp. So the Marjorie Strong has been going on for quite some time. This going back into the I believe this goes all the way back into the CLGA days too. So this is a very long-standing event throughout the region. It was hosted at Rideau View, right? So
correct, yeah, and because it was held on July 4th. To, I guess, sort of, honor the Americans. They renamed the divisions for the day. I think they called them the Firecracker 1, Firecracker 2, and Sparklers or something like that. I thought it was pretty funny. When I first saw that, I thought, that's a funny name. And then I didn't really put it together and just realized it was, more of the Canada Day weekend, July the 4th sort of thing, and just sort of to honor that.
Whatever floats your boat. It's all good, exactly.
Right? Fun event, fun pairings. Again, a 2-ball competition. People kind of like that for a little less pressure than solo events. So
yes, 2-ball events are particularly good, and we have one coming up ourselves in September at Brockville Country Club, the Flagstick 2-ball championship. 4 divisions
starting to really roll in now.
The registrations have really started to pick up, and I think they're going to continue to kind of grow a little bit more. We're going to have a couple of more announcements about registration gift items that we're going to be adding to that package coming up. But as we said before, we're not giving away what's in that gift right now, because we do not want you to play just because of what you're getting in that registration gift. We're telling you right now that you're going to get some good stuff in the registration gift, and you're going to get an exciting weekend, 2 days of golf at a really top level golf club and a really great experience. So that's why you should enter. So get over to flagstick.com and register for the Flagstick 2-ball event before there's no spots left, because it is limited spots. It's a fall event, so we can't do like 144 people.
No, limited daylight.
It's 50 teams of 2. We might be able to squeeze 60 teams of 2 if the demand is there, but 50 teams of 2, and those spaces are, I'm going to say, probably a little close to half full right now. So don't wait. Now, one more thing before we take our break and jump into our back nine, Scott. The Flagstick. See, I'm at Flagstick on the brain right now.
That's okay.
The OVGA, or Ottawa Valley Golf Association, men's intersectionals is coming up.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a little something on flagstick.com.
Yeah, we've got a preview story that will be up now if you're listening to this podcast as it comes out. Joe McLean did a little history and a little preview from based on last year, which you expect coming up. Obviously, the men's is the start of the intersectional series for the Ottawa Valley Golf Association. So we'll have a preview story up there if you want to check that out on flagstick.com. Lots more competition coming up. Obviously, the women's, the seniors, everything else coming up there. We'll have preview stories on most of those.
There you go. More content for you golf enthusiasts on flagstick.com. Because we certainly cannot talk about everything on this podcast, or we'd basically be doing like a 12-hour podcast and rambling through it, and you'd get bored of us in a hurry though. Okay, we got to take a quick break.
Yeah.
And when we come back, we'll have our little tip lesson on the lesson tee with Kevin and Jake Haime talking about bounce on your wedges, understanding the bounce on your wedges. And we're going to get into golf course rankings. We'll call it the gist of the list, right, Scott? The gist of the list. So right now we got to take a break and stay with us. We'll be right back.
With Z-Star Series Divide, Hideki sees it all. See? There's the spin, and boom. That's the line. Introducing the two-tone Z-Star Series Divide, only from Strixon.
And back we are. Welcome back to the Flagstick podcast. And we're going to jump right out to the lesson tee, and with Kevin and Jake Haime, as a matter of fact, on our this segment of the lesson tee brought to you by the Kevin Haime Golf School. It's always the right time to play better, whether you need private lessons, a better short game, some putting help, or custom club fitting. Visit kevinhaime.com, and remember that better golf is a lot more fun. And ain't that the truth? Better golf is a lot more fun. This week on the lesson tee, Kevin and Jake are going to help you understand a little bit more about the bounce on your wedges and what they do, how to use them. So let's jump out to the lesson tee with Kevin and Jake now.
Time for a quick tip, golfers. And this one's a really important one, Jake, because it deals with using the bounce. The little angle on the bottom of your wedges, the back edge being lower down than the front edge, so that you don't dig into the turf, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been practicing here for 20-25 minutes, and as you can see, there's not a lot of significant difference here. It's just slight scuffs of the grass.
Yeah, you're scuffing the grass. There's his last divot, everyone. It's basically nothing. And you can see he's pulling at the grass as his club head's moving through it, but he's not digging that leading edge in. That's not how you get spin. That's not how you hit clean shots. Let's hit one, Jake. Let's see. How do you use the bounce? How are you not scared of sculling it with that back edge down a bit?
Well, first of all, I'll sit for my wedges, so the wedge should move through the ground properly. It glides to the turf.
Yeah.
And if I feel like I scuff the sole of my club on the ground, I'll be able to do that when I hit the ball as well.
I love that. So get fitted for wedges, get the proper amount of bounce, and you'll hit cleaner, better pitch shots.
All right. You know, for those that might not completely understand why there is bounce on your wedge and what it does during the chipping motion or the golf swing motion, I guess that kind of does sort of sum up the brushing across the ground and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, a wedge, any golf club is simply a tool. So understanding it better and knowing how to make use of it obviously helps shape what you're trying to do when you're out golfing. Exactly. So knowing the intention is really important. And, just the basics there of looking at bounce and understanding how to kind of hit those chips and pitches and making use of bounce at the same time.
Yes.
Very, very critical, and certainly, a primary component of any good skilled short game player.
Oh, of course. And I mean, there's obviously a lot more detail that can go into, explaining bounce and how it's used with wedges and on different types of shots too. Like, you can't possibly, Kevin and Jake aren't going to sit there and go through every single possible scenario, because then they'd have to move over to the sand, and then they'd have to move into long grass. And then, there's just so many different,
different types variables. Of turf, different players, how they angle of attack. There's a lot of things that go into it, but just the simple basic understanding is just kind of a good starting point for you to kind of look at that and consider, how you use your wedges and the bounce.
Exactly. All right. Now, I'm looking forward to this upcoming topic on the back nine, which obviously is brought to you by our good friends at Golf Sim Gurus. If you're looking to put a simulator in your home or your business, but in your home, custom golf simulator setups are built to your specs and fit your budget. Visit Golf Sim Gurus to learn more about that. Okay, so this topic,
which we discussed privately lots before, and we've had
the private conversation is a little different than
it could be, but I think it's an important topic, and that's the reason why kind of put it in here for the back nine. And the preface here is that we're not talking about a particular ranking. They come out from all different types of media outlets. All sorts of different places have rankings for golf courses. So this is not meant to target one or another. It's just to discuss the idea of rankings and some of the different nuances that are around that maybe some people haven't considered, but obviously we've discussed much over the years.
Yeah, and the thing is with rankings, they come out, and nowadays with social media, it used to be that a lot of these rankings would come out, and they come out in various publications. They wouldn't be as as widespread as they are now. Now they're, you know, with social media, they're all over Facebook, they're all over Instagram, they're all over Twitter. And that also gives people more of an easy opportunity to attack. And not everybody is going to agree with every ranking that comes out.
Nope.
Because the criteria for each one of these ranking systems can be completely different. You know, so, you know, what are some of the criteria that some of these ranking systems are using for determining what golf course should appear in what position or otherwise? I mean, Sky, you can probably speak to that a little bit, you know, with respect to the criteria that some of the rankings in general are using to come up with these spots.
Yeah, well, most of them focus a lot on the golf course itself, not the golf club. And people should realize and understand that, you know, what you see or experience when you go to a golf course is quite different than maybe what the rankers will look at. So, for an example, you know, one that I know of doesn't allow any contribution as far as things like clubhouse or, you know, food service, or, you know what I mean? All the other things that are nothing but the golf course itself, and doesn't even take into account, you know, condition, because that can vary by day to day. It's more about design features and so forth. So, again, what you see when you go to the golf course and maybe you have this great experience, because this is what influences a lot of people. They look at a list and they go, oh, that golf course is ranked that high. But hey, when I went there, you know, maybe it was their first time going to a super high-end private club. Maybe, you know, maybe they've never had a caddy before. Or maybe they've never seen a clubhouse like that before. Maybe that, you know what I mean? Maybe the pace of play was really good. There's a lot of different factors that can come into it that would make a person's personal ranking, if they're not one of these rankers, you know, different than what they would see when they go in the rankings. And I guess that's one of the things. Most of these ranking systems are trying to make things as objective as possible so that they don't have those nuances of emotions and things like, which they're always going to have a bias. And I think that's one of the things that we have to deal with and look at. And so, yeah, depending on wherever the rankings are, you also got to remember too, there are factors in there, like, you know, some golf courses don't want to be ranked. Some don't want to participate in lists. So we have a number of golf courses over the years that, you know, have not been included in rankings, and people go, well, that golf course is great. It's done this or it's done that, but it's not included. Well, maybe they don't want to be involved. Maybe they're excluded for some other reason. On the other side of it, you know, what makes a golf course great? Does it mean they've hosted a tons of, you know, top championships? Does it mean they've hosted pro tour events? I mean, just because, you know, a golf course hosts a pro event doesn't mean it's always the greatest course. It can mean that it's really good as far as its location, close to where sponsors want to have it, good for logistics as far as TV. There's a lot of different things that go into it. So I think people have to first really, I think when they first look at all these lists, they have to understand that just don't look at the number, look at and understand and realize that there's a lot of factors that go into each particular ranking and how they go about it, whether it's based on architecture, whether it's based on experience. And that, you know, I think the best ranking systems that you see, or I wouldn't say the best, but the ones that at least explain how they rank them, at least gives you an idea beforehand, before you kind of jump on it and go, why is this different than something else?
Well, and something to look at too, something that kind of, I guess ticks me off a little bit, is that some of the ranking systems that are out there, and again, we are not speaking specifically about one ranking system over another. So don't think that we're focused indirectly on one particular thing, because we're not. However, there are so many of them out there that the ones that the ranking systems that come out, or the rankings that come out that I find out are influenced by dollars and cents. Those are the ones that ultimately end up ticking me off when I find out that has played a part in how a course gets ranked on somebody's ranking system, is when you find out that, oh, well, you know, this they did a media buy, or they did you know, or they invited, you know, and paid people to do something. Like when there's money involved, money changing hands, then it becomes, to me, as soon as there's a dollar and cents involved
there's an influence
in
there.
influencing the decision
Yeah.
of whether someone's on the rankings or in a certain position in the rankings or whatever, as soon as that happens, to me, it doesn't negate the position that the golf course is on the ranking, because, or if they're on it or not, because maybe they belong there anyway.
Right.
But it certainly taints that in my mind, which is why you never really find out, that there's money changing hands, but it happens.
Yeah, and ideally, obviously, it's like anything else. You want to have somebody that's as impartial as possible, which can be hard to do, especially within the golf world. But you'd like to see a system in some cases that people actually go to the golf course, they actually pay their own green fee, they actually don't even announce that who they are and that they are a ranker. I think some of the best rankers that I know out there that go to golf courses are unknown people, that know architecture, they know what they're supposed to be doing, and they don't announce that they are a ranking panelist and whatever, because you know what, automatically they're going to get treated differently. Automatically, if they put their name on the tee sheet and people know that at that club that, hey, we've got rankers coming that day, you're not going to tell me that their manager or their superintendent or whatever, they're going to do everything that's perfectly possible to kind of influence that result. And I think getting to first off, you're talking about influencing how it happens. I guess that's part of it as well. The size of these panels that go in there. Here's the thing. Take the United States, for an example. If we've got 350 million people in the United States, you take the number of golfers and things like that. If a ranking panel that for the United States, for an example, only had 500 people on it, is that really definitive as far as, they might be well-qualified people, and I'm not saying there's a better way to do it, but, relative to maybe a Canada or an Ireland or whatever, if there's only 100 people or whatever, can they have played every single golf course?
Well, that's the thing and they don't. That's right. The thing. And the majority of these ranking systems, the people that are ranking the golf courses, they're not the same people are not playing all of the same golf courses. It depends on what ranking system criteria you're working with. Some of them require the rankers to play a certain number of the golf courses that are in the rankings in order to rank them. But in truly being able to rank a golf course from 1 to whatever, 50 or 1 to 100, 1 to 25, even if we did the same thing within our region, Scott, if you and I and Joe created a ranking system and said, we are going to rank the top 25 golf courses in the Flagstick region. Like, we are going to do it. The only way to definitively come up with a top 25 is for all three of us to play the same golf courses, all the golf courses that want to participate. So you would let each golf course in this region, which is like 150 or 160 golf courses in our immediate region, we'd have to notify every single one of them that we were going to be doing this ranking system. Do you want to participate? They would have to give us a yay or a nay. And then we would have to schedule, and to do it properly, you would have to show up unannounced. You can't let them know you're coming, because then they have time to do the extra things to butter up the golf course. You want to get the golf course, for the most part, like, there has to be a very specific criteria in order to come up with a definitive 25, but you can't do it. Like, you just can't.
You can't do it. And I think that's the futility of it as well, because even if it's 3 of us or 300 of us, that's going to vary a lot, and so much that you don't have the ability to see all the golf courses at the same time in their best possible conditions. If condition is a factor that plays into it, who knows what other factors are going to go into it. And then all the certain biases. Anybody can sit here, and not just us, anybody can sit there in a group. And I've seen a million of these before, where a group will sit there of 4 players and talk about their top 10 golf courses and their opinion on one single golf course. Even though it can be a really high quality golf course, their rankings will vary by a lot. And I know a lot of these rankings go, oh, well, we'll average it out and stuff like that. But the problem with this is that it becomes gospel in a
Mhm.
lot of cases. And I think that's one of the key things in talking about this is how it ends up impacting a lot of other things based on a ranking of, of how definitive it is. And people go, oh, we're the number 1, or we're the number 10, or we're not. Okay, well, that's great. And that's fine as far as the list is concerned. But is it true? I mean, I always say to golf courses, you know what, be number 1 for your customer. And while I
Yeah.
know that sounds, goofy and whatever, people have to realize that none of these rankings are definitive.
No.
They are simply entertainment. They are simply an opinion. They're good for discussion points. And I've had the conversations with people that administer these, and they admit, although they don't, publish it and say, hey, this is just about a point of discussion or whatever. As soon as they put the word out there in the title that says top 100 or top 50 best golf courses, best, not favorite, best.
Mhm.
Is it the favorite of our ranking panel? That'd be more accurate.
Yeah.
But best is a better and easier word to wrap up, and it's one that people buy into without knowing how the results are there.
Well, yeah.
And that's the frustrating part, because I have seen rankings over the years administered by, a media organization, for an example, one that maybe doesn't exist even anymore, but it was clear that their sample size was so small that it was ridiculous. And I almost felt bad for golf courses when they would all of a sudden say, we're X in this ranking or whatever. Like, okay, you're just as good as go down to the bar and get 10 dudes down there to tell you what their best golf courses is. And then you can come out with, a number. It doesn't really have a lot of value. And I think they all get misconstrued a lot. We know a golf course, for an example, one that doesn't exist anymore, that I can remember one time there is a comment within a Golf Digest used to have a book that was like best courses to play in kind of the regions and stuff like that. And they would use comments that were from golfers in there. And they would have quotes from golfers, because a golfer could write in and say what they wanted. Well, in this one particular one, a single person said, it's in my top 10 golf courses to play in Eastern Ontario. Pretty soon, that quote was misconstrued.
And I know the golf course you're talking about too.
Yeah, and it doesn't exist anymore, and showed up in their marketing as top 10 golf course in Eastern Ontario. Well, it was top 10 based on one person. It was their top 10. So while it had marketing value when it's good, I guess, even though it was a lie, but then what happens on the other side of it? And that's one of the things as well. You see a lot of the golf courses that will, they're obviously quick to talk about when their rankings are high, but when their rankings are poor, then they get ticked off and they get mad. And I can tell you, in talking to people that administer, some of these rankings, some of the emails and letters and things that they get, based on the rankings, I don't even know how they endure it. I really don't, because people just get so mad when all of a sudden some person's golf course or their golf club drops 20 spots in the rankings, and these people have a fit, right? But
now,
if it's good, they think it's great.
Like, I'll tell you this. So we're generalizing different rankings, but I'm going to be specific about this one. We stopped doing ours. Well, we used to have the Flagstick Reader's Choice Awards. Right. And I'm thinking at some point or another, we might jump back into this.
Yeah, but explain the premise. Explain the premise of how we did it.
So the premise behind the Flagstick Reader's Choice Awards, when we launched it, was exactly what it says. It's the Flagstick Reader's Choice Awards. And we had a number of different categories, but some of those categories, one of those categories, we had the favorite golf course over $50, and that changed as green fee rates went up, but we had sort of the top end and we had the lower end green fee. We had two categories: favorite over and favorite under. We had most underrated, our favorite underrated. We had best conditioning. We had service. We had clubhouse. We had favorite par 3, par 4, par 5.
Knowing that these were opinions
Yes,
of readers,
favorites.
What's the important? It's favorite. It wasn't saying best.
No.
And we always bristled when someone would say or change the marketing and say, "Oh, we were voted best golf." No. You were not voted best golf
Exactly.
course by
We
Flagstick
created a
Golf Magazine.
logo.
Yeah.
And every winner of every category, and even the ones that were in the categories in the top 5, because I think it was the top 5 we had per category. You were allowed to use this logo, and the logo specifically stated
reader's choice,
favorite, and what year it was and what category it was, and they were allowed to use it in their marketing however they wanted to. But if they strayed from the verbiage that we provided, then they got asked to not use it or to change it back, or they slap on the wrist or whatever, but they weren't allowed to say it that way. You're not the best. You are the reader's choice favorite. Now, that is probably a more accurate assessment. Those Reader's Choice Awards were probably a more accurate assessment of the golf courses throughout the region than you and Joe and I could have come up with on our own. Because what would have ended up happening is, despite the fact that we are supposed to be professional media members, we would still have influence by our favorites. And that's what they ultimately would be. There's no way to be that impartial to say it's the best. Oh, it's the best condition. Well, how so? What criteria do you put on a golf course that says it's the best condition? Because it has bent grass fairways and not Kentucky blue? Because it feels like carpet when you walk on it, as opposed to feeling like there's more clay underneath and it's harder? Well, it's a different golf course. Some of the best golf courses in the world don't have bent grass fairways. How many bent grass fairways are there on golf courses in Scotland and Ireland?
Mostly fescue.
So, you know what I mean? Like, and
There's
that was the criteria for a long time. If a golf course had the fluffy, soft, carpety, bent grass fairways, they had to be the best golf course. No, not necessarily. Maybe they were, but not necessarily. So, we did that favorite, and we did it for a lot of years. And then obviously we noticed that things were starting to, we were starting to get multiple entries in different categories, and people were starting to photocopy the
stuff in the ballot box,
and then we pulled the plug on it and said, okay, well, we're not going to do that. Now, with today's technology of being able to do online balloting, and to have CAPTCHA and reCAPTCHA and ways of stopping spamming and things like that, we'd be more inclined to reintroduce the Reader's Choice Awards at some date, because people can enter online, and we can control that they only enter once from one email address. Now, they can use multiple email addresses. There's very little way of stopping that.
No, you're trying to kind of tighten it up as much as you possibly can, and that I think that lends to our integrity as well. While we knew it was the most democratic way to have as many votes as possible,
we saw it being abused.
We saw it being abused, which, is why we got away from it, because we didn't think it was fair to the people that were losing, not the people that were winning. It's also not fair to that all of a sudden, just because Aunt Eunice, stuffed the ballot box and she loved the par 5 at her golf course and wanted to give it 100 votes. That's again, it just didn't make it that as valid as we would want it to be.
Exactly.
And so that's as a result of it, and that's why we don't participate in ranking panels as well.
Exactly. Exactly. And the other thing with ranking panels is maybe what they should create is more transparency, similar to what they're talking about, or they have been talking about doing with the with Hockey Hall of Fame, and those that are voting. There are those that I've listened to, Dave Poulin, who's talked about he would have no problem whatsoever in his balloting being transparent, whereas others don't want them to be transparent. It's like, you know what? Well, if you don't want your balloting to be transparent, then there's a reason for that. Now, number one, you don't want to have to defend a choice that you make,
correct,
and get lambasted for it, which I understand, but it's also that you're potentially favoring one player over another, and you don't want to other people to see what you're doing or why you're doing that, because you see things like, oh, well, one guy didn't even have Connor McDavid in his top 5. How is that even remotely possible in the hockey world? So it'd be like somebody not having a certain golf course in their top 5, and it's like, how is that possible? Well, defend it. If you're going to choose
Yeah,
that
for sure.
golf course,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
put your name with the ballot, put your
Right.
name with the ranking, and maybe they publish the criteria, the wording that's used when someone explains why they chose each golf course on the list. I don't know. I don't think at this point that there's ever really, when you have a panel of people, whether they're media people or not media people, deciding what the best golf course is in a country, in the world, in the whatever, in a region. When you have a panel and there isn't a definitive structured criteria for each member of the panel to
well,
it's impossible. You just can't do it.
Yeah, they would have to have such a large panel to make the sample size accurate. I mean, anybody that's involved with polling will tell you that unless they have a large enough sample size, they can't say it's accurate. So within a particular country, as I mentioned, if you're looking at that scale of a 350 million people in the United States, and say you've got 30 million golfers, are 500 or 200 or 100 golfers does that really define what it should be? And I think they get misconstrued, and unfortunately they go from being entertainment to being taken seriously and used in the marketing, so they get misconstrued. And I think part of the problem with that in there, and I get it, obviously, we're in the media, we obviously, it's critical for us with marketing and advertising and so forth that, we drive as much of an audience as possible to our content. But I think in a lot of cases, some of these lists, because people like to look at them and they're curious, I think they just become the giant clickbait is really what they amount to.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
And every publication that's done them says, oh, it's our most viewed. So that's why they continue to do it. So I get that from a business standpoint, but I think they just have to temper it.
What if they were to do something like where they had for these, if they want to do like a best or whatever, have a nomination process, okay, where if a golf course wants to be considered for this award, then they have to provide a nomination package, and that package would include video of their golf course, photos of the golf course, explanations, and like certain things that they pare the lists down through nominations. So golf courses that normally would not be considered by a panel, because there's too many. Don't tell me for a minute that there's not a golf course that's not on that one of these lists that shouldn't be on the list just because nobody wanted to go play it or nobody really paid much attention to its existence. There's too many. I mean, how many golf courses are there in the US?
30,000.
And you're telling me that every member of every panel that does these lists has played all the golf courses?
No, and the other side
of it too.
The other side of it too is that golf courses, I hear that within panels, and they'll say, oh, well, that golf course didn't do that. They didn't get really included this year because they didn't have enough rankers to go visit them.
Exactly.
Well, okay. Well, that makes the list invalid.
Exactly.
Right away.
Off the bat.
And calling a list the top 100, as opposed to saying it's the top 100 that we could include because we had enough ranking panelists and the membership criteria didn't exclude them. I mean, there's enough asterisks upon asterisks here.
What's that URL look like?
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't make it valid as it is. So,
no,
God love you, any of the journalists and friends and whatever that are out there trying to make something out of this, but people need to understand the validity of them. And I know other journalists that are the same way as us. They don't have any, they know that these lists are not definitive, but I think the problem is the industry tries to make them definitive. And I think you'll start to see that as criteria is going to happen, and you'll see this more and more, you're going to see more and more lists that are going to exclude clubs. Either clubs are going to ask not to be included in the lists because they've had a bad ranking and they don't want to be included, because obviously it's easier just to make it go away if they're not involved in the ranking, and they can just say, oh, well, we're not in the ranking because we just decided not to or whatever. Or we're going to see golf courses, especially in this era of DE and I, we're going to see courses that have criteria that maybe they're a men's only club, or maybe they've had a situation at the club or whatever, where all of a sudden, maybe the ranking panel or whoever's running the ranking will say, oh, well, we can't include that course or whatever. Again, when do things become valid? There are literally golf courses on some of these lists that are just or not on the list because they're privately owned. They're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we can think of ones like Goodwood in Canada or Fremagog or whatever, where there's not a lot of access to a lot of these places. So if you can't get the rankers out there, you're not going to be including them on the list. And there's dozens of those in the US and as well, lots of those throughout the world. So I think the biggest takeaway for people is they're for debate, they're for entertainment, but also if you're the golf courses and you're trying to use them as leverage for your marketing, just be careful, because what it says is not always true. And you might get called out on it. And while it will sort of it'll sort of get past a lot of people because they'll assume it's true, it may not be, right? So be proud of your facility, be the best possible facility you can for your customers, and that is more important to take care of them than it is to take care of everyone else. And I get it, public golf courses, this means a lot to them from a revenue standpoint. If your golf course is top ranked, you're going to drive revenue. Private clubs, yeah, you know what? You might get more people that want to join because they think of it as a top ranked or whatever. Some of it, I think it feeds their ego a little bit to say that they're ranked. But if they put so much focus on the ranking, which a lot of them do, like, boards panic about where they are in the rankings and stuff, I think they're losing the point. They need to provide the best possible experience to satisfy the people that are their customers, and not satisfy the random people that come once every few years to provide a ranking and put them on a list. Make it the best for the end user.
I totally agree with that. And we got to take another quick little break, Scott, because this is going to be one of those podcasts where the back nine segments running a little longer than normal, but it's a great topic. Now I have one more comment on that, and to extend the point that you just made. Sure. As a marketing person myself, and that's what I've predicated my life on, even with everything that we do here. I'm a marketing guy, and the one thing that I will say to any golf course operator manager that's listening to this podcast or watching this podcast and hearing us talk about these things is this: you need to treat every day like there's a golf course ranker coming to see your golf course the next day. If you do that, then your golf course will be in the best possible shape that you can get it in day in and day out. That's the best possible shape you can get it in. That doesn't mean that you go spending absorbently amounts of money on getting your golf course. You've got a budget, you've got to work with. You put that golf course in the best shape you can put it in every single day. You have the best customer service every single day in your clubhouse, on the golf course. If you follow that criteria, then you're going to be fine. As a business, as a golf course. It doesn't matter what your ranking is. It makes no difference.
You'll be way better off than whatever ranking is.
Because those rankers are not paying for green fees at your golf course. They're not fueling your bank account so that they're not running your business for you. They're just putting a number on your golf course. And that's great if you get a good number that can help you market your facility down the road. But you don't need that number to market your facility. You need your facility to market your facility. So you get your facility in the best possible condition, shape, best customer service that it can possibly be in. And you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
100%. Simple as that.
Love it.
All right. Let's end it on that note. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have a little bit of discussion about golf books before we close out the show. So I hope you enjoyed that little segment, because I know I did. Just to stick with us, we're going to be right back.
With Z-Star Series Divide, Hideki sees it all. See? There's the spin, and boom, that's the line. Introducing the two-tone Z-Star Series Divide, only from Srixon.
And once again, we are back. Jeff Potter here with Scott McLeod, as always, and we're ready to dive into our product watch, which happens to focus on little golf book segment. But of course, product watch is brought to you by Greensmere Golf and Country Club. Save 40% on all day green fee rates with FlexPass for only $425 plus tax. Visit Greensmere flagstick.com for more information. Okay, Scott, we're stepping outside of the stuff that's in your golf bag, unless you keep books in your golf bag. Maybe
That would be
people
odd.
do. But we're stepping outside of the normal equipment talk, and we're going to dive in a little bit with golf books, which I'm not a big reader myself. I know you are far bigger reader than I am, but I do have my likings. There's certain books that I like and certain books that I have no interest in reading. I'm kind of more of a biography type book reader. I like to read books, particularly that have true stories associated with them. I happen to. There's one that I actually read about 2 months ago now. It was the Steve Williams book. I think it's called Out of the Rough.
Yep.
And books like that sort of focus on some true stories and things that normally you would not be privy to.
Right.
That kind of open up a golfer or a caddy or a course designer. Those are the kinds of books that I tend to sort of find interest in reading. Not so much instruction books, myself, coffee table books like golf course books, golf courses of the world, things like that. I kind of like those too, but what about you?
Well, I think that's the great thing about golf. It's such a broad subject that, there's lots of different nuances and different avenues that you can take. I mean, you mentioned that as far as biographies, a lot of people don't always think about that. They do naturally think of a golf book being an instruction book, but if you like Steve Williams' book, you probably like Caddy for Life, which is the Bruce Edwards story. He did that with John Feinstein. That was a beauty. I remember reading that on a plane. I forget where I was going. And generally, I haven't been on a lot of planes lately, but I would read a fair bit on the plane. I would say I've kind of done a mix over the years. I like some of the historical books. There's been some great ones on Tom Morris, for an example. There's been some different ones on, historically that way. Greatest Game Ever Played, which obviously, got adapted into a movie. Mark Frost's book on the 1913 US Open with Francis Ouimet, which obviously was a great one as well. Instruction ones definitely are the ones I get asked about the most.
I would imagine
more than anything. I will have a post up on flagstick.com next week with kind of I call it the 6-pack of a library of golf instruction books that people can kind of add to their library if they're looking for some basics that range from short game instruction, practice, kind of that mental aspects of the game. And I mean, I think some of the books that blend those two are interesting as well. They're not straight out instruction, but maybe they talk a little bit about their experience in doing stuff, which is probably why the Little Red Book by Harvey Penick was probably one of the greatest sellers of all time, because, it was a combination of the stories of the players, that went to see Mr. Penick and, their successes, be it a Ben Crenshaw or a Mickey Wright or a Tom Kite or whoever, and some of the background of them, but also some of the instruction that was given to them as well, which created a great combination. And I think, that was part of the success as well for a golf book like Bob Rotella's Golf Is Not a Game of Perfect. He blended the same sort of aspects where they had instruction, but they had it from a practical sense of here's how it was applied to particular players and their stories and how they went about using that type of instruction. So I think that combination really, based on, looking at overall sales of, books of all time, they seem to be the ones that, kind of people really, go after. And as you said, the ones that give the details, obviously, we're familiar with the fact that, Hank Haney did a book about, Tiger Woods and his experience with Tiger Woods that came out a few years back, The Big Miss. That was a little bit salacious, so that's why it got a lot of attention. But again, it's kind of getting to the details behind the scenes, maybe the things you don't hear about on the Golf Channel or broadcasts or whatever that, tend to interest people. But I think that's part of why they like some of the instruction books as well, because not only are people trying to get better, They want to know deeper secrets versus just something that's really basic that they might get really quickly. They want to know, okay, how do I really apply this and make it, kind of part of my game? And not everybody's going to be reading, books like, Mark Brody and, his book about strokes gained, every shot counts. It's not for everyone. It's not going to sit there and be riveting for somebody who just wants a nice biography or whatever. But that, again, is the cool part about golf books, is that there are so many and that they appeal to many people in different ways.
Yeah, and for, as far as instruction books go, I mean, the one golf instruction book that I still have, that I still like, and I think there's a good chunk of the teachings within this book that maybe are not looked upon the same way as they were before, is the Natural Golf Swing, the George Knudson book.
Yeah,
it
still carries weight for sure.
I still, I kind of related to it a little bit when, reading it. I understood it. There was a lot about it initially that's like, oh, no, there's no way that doesn't make any sense. That can't be true.
Yeah.
My arms have to do more than that. My hands have to do more than that. And then you start to see more and more of the teachings and stuff now, and you think, oh, well, maybe some of that was true. And so that's one of the, instruction books. But like I say, generally speaking, not an instruction book kind of guy. I think David Ledbetter did a book way back when called Faults and Fixes, and I thought that was kind of a cool concept for a book, to less about long-winded golf instruction and tips, and more about, well, if you're doing this, then here's what you can do to fix it. Well, if you're doing this, it was very general, and I think it was kind of animated pictures,
almost too general, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was kind of Jack Nicklaus Golf My Way kind of.
Yeah, well, I think Golf My Way was a little bit different. The same with the Natural Golf Swing as well, and the fact that it is, it's admitted that it's their way of doing things. And Knudson's was written that way. Obviously, he sat down and he wrote that with Lauren Rubenstein here in Canada, and they went through all his notes, and Lauren still has all his yellow sketch pads of all his notes that he made during his career. And George was voracious as far as trying to get better and get better and get better, and that's what he wanted to do. Is he wanted to put his thoughts down in a book before he passed away. And the thing is, it's told from his standpoint of how it affected him and how it integrated into his career and how he made those discoveries. He doesn't necessarily always say it's going to apply to everyone, but he does say there's some common elements that might be helpful for some people. And again, that gets into the difficulty with the golf swing, is that it is so complex that it is really hard to refine it down to something really, really simple. And if somebody says they're doing it really simply, chances are maybe they're just trying to sell the product rather than give you, great information. But, those are great examples. And I think, the Natural Golf Swing, it's a great one. It shouldn't be confused, obviously, with the videos of Mo Norman that were called the Natural Golf Swing. Totally different thing. And obviously, I value that book in the fact that I gave it out to all my groomsmen at my wedding 25 years ago. And have had numerous copies over the years, and been fortunate to have a lot of conversations with Lauren about that. But yeah, those ones I think are good. The ones that blend stuff. I think the value of the coffee table books has sort of changed over the years. I have a number of those as well, mostly historical, maybe related to the US Open or the Open Championship or so forth. Beautiful to look at. Unfortunately, I think the value of photography has kind of gone down a little bit with the, the emergence of the internet. We can access photos of, the Open Championship all the time, or the US Open Championship. We just, with a click of a button. So, years past, those have held more value, but they're still great. As far as giving them for a gift or things like that. And, we have had a number of lists over the years on flagstick.com, and I will produce more. And like I said, I've got one coming up, which is more based on instruction type books, but I think that's just a basic, kind of little wander over some of the ones.
For sure.
Name one book. Maybe can you name one book, another book that maybe you like, or as far as
not a golf, oddly enough, after what I just said, it's not a biography or instruction book, but Golf in the Kingdom.
Michael Murphy.
really enjoyed that book.
Not an easy one to get through for some people. It's a little mystical.
I did enjoy it. You know, it's so, yeah. I would say that. That book probably sticks in my mind a lot. A lot of the other ones, when they're biographies and stuff like that, they kind of blur a little bit because they're very similar. They're informative, but the content of them doesn't stick with me for a very long time. It sticks with me then when I'm reading it, and you know, but then afterwards with the Golf in the Kingdom, that one, it was a very interesting book, and it did stick with me for quite some time. So what about you?
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. I think if people go and look at something like To the Linksland, which is a golfing adventure by Michael Bamberger. Obviously, maybe people are more familiar with Bamberger now, a more well-known writer, but at the time he was writing for the Philadelphia Inquirer and wanted to go on a little bit of a golf adventure, and basically went and caddied on the European tour. And some of the stories from that are just fantastic. And, you know, to see what the tour was like back in the day, which would have been, you know, in the 1980s, you know, he would just latched onto a player and they went from country to country. They were in buses. It was the old school European tour. And I think that one we'll find interesting. Another one kind of in the same vein, it seemed to like a lot of them that are over in Europe, but An American Caddy in St. Andrews by Ollie Horowitz is a fun one as well. Ollie was a film student and would go back over to St. Andrews and stay with his uncle and caddy in the summers. And he wrote about it in a book. And I really hope he's talking about having a volume 2. He's talked about it for many years. I was fortunate to meet up with him a few years back in St. Andrews and have a pint and discuss kind of his book and stuff like that. And hopefully he does come out with a second one on that. But it really showed the nuances of what it was like to be a caddy at the old course, and especially from an American perspective, and how different it was and what it's like to live there in St. Andrews and do that job summer after summer. So that's one for somebody to check out as well.
Cool. All right. Well, that is the little book discussion, and there will be sure to get over to flagstick.com and check out Scott's post next week on some various instruction books particularly. But this was a good discussion to have leading into that, and it's been a heck of a podcast with respect to discussions. You know, from course rankings to golf books. You certainly are getting your fill of our points of view and opinions on a number of different things. So we hope that everybody has enjoyed that part of the show this week. But we do got to get out. It's been a long one, but it's been a good one. I want to thank our sponsors, as always, Metcalf Golf Club, Golf Sim Gurus, Greensmere Golf and Country Club, Kevin Haime Golf School, and our presenting sponsor, Strixon Golf Balls. Whether you're looking for a premium urethane option, the Z-Star series, a quality budget option in the soft feel, or somewhere in between with the Q-Star Tour, Strixon is bound to present an option that will work for your game. For more information, visit strixon.ca. Hopefully you're continuing to enjoy watching and listening to us. Be sure to follow us across all social media networks on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Subscribe on Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe on the YouTube channel, to our YouTube channel. The contest is ongoing. Get over there, subscribe, comment on one of the posts. I'd like to win free stuff, and we'll get you into the draw. So you'll want to check that. Be sure to pop over to flagstick.com, where you will find great content every single day, and you're going to like it. I'm sure of it. As always, we appreciate you being with us. And I am Jeff Botter.
I'm Scott McLeod.
Always remember, go for the stick.